I don't know who needs to hear this, but Star Wars Theory does not understand Star Wars.
Well, me then.
Yo, man, I got a lot to unpack, so let's get into it.
There are a lot of things that I don't understand.
What's up, Star Wars fans? My name is Prince, and I'm an urban acolyte, and this is a response to Star Wars Theory's video on the Acolyte episode 3. He had a lot of criticisms, and he basically wrote off the episode, called it garbage, and that's the narrative that everyone's running with. And well, I think that the people who feel this way, I think you need to pay attention to the details, because I've looked at a lot of what's going around online and the points that Star Wars Theory made in his video. And I mean, I'm not going to call it wrong because it's art and anybody can interpret art the way they wish to. But just looking at this, I don't feel like he was actually paying attention to the episode, especially not the fine details, right? So I got a list of points on my screen over here. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's not because I'm lying or I'm untrustworthy or whatever these body language experts have to say. It's because I'm looking at the next point that Star Wars Theory made in his video, so I can keep myself on topic. So the first point, Star Wars Theory criticized the episode regarding the Jedi's behavior. And so this is kind of a weird one. He said, you know, the Jedi are criticized for taking children away from their families, especially considering they didn't take Anakin, who had a strong attachment to his mother. The point is that Anakin left with the Jedi. He was 9 years old, and Yoda was like, he's too old, right? And with Osha, right, one of the issues that was brought up in a previous episode is they felt she was too old. She was 8, so she was younger than Anakin and still too old. In the episode, Master Soul says, look, the Jedi came and got me when I was 4, right? We've seen Ahsoka leave with the Jedi when she was maybe a toddler, right? Count Dooku, his family basically his father wanted to give him away. He wanted nothing to do with him. The Jedi do take children, but the emphasis is on, well, what do you mean by take? Master Coral is very strongly attached. Mother Coral is strongly attached to the girls, right? She birthed them, as we learn in the episode. She carried them, right? They are her daughters. And you know, we don't really know how they were conceived. Not yet. Everybody seems to have already, you know, come to a conclusion, but we really don't know how she was conceived, how Mother Anastasia created them, right? But she has a strong attachment to them. She doesn't want them to leave. And you got to understand that one of the themes that I identified in the episode is there's some tension and some hostility between this coven of witches and the Jedi. We're led to believe that the witches have been persecuted. That's why they're there on Brindok in the first place. We learned that when we saw Kylo Ren's lightsaber, and it said this is a Jedi Crusader's lightsaber, that at one time the Jedi were Crusaders, and maybe they weren't the great and shining hope in the galaxy. They were on a crusade to stamp out not only the Sith, but possibly other offshoot groups of Force users who, you know, were offshoots of the Jedi, and, you know, who else? In Legends, it was a Jedi who started, you know, the Night Sisters on Dathomir, right? So that's an offshoot group of the Jedi. We don't know how this coven of witches actually began, you know, and the Jedi might see them as heretics, right? So there's some hostility between these groups. You have to keep that in mind when you look at the interactions between the Jedi and the witches, right? So the next point, he says that the Force is inconsistent. The witches' understanding of the Force clashes with established Star Wars lore. That's not true. Star Wars Theory argues that it contradicts how the Jedi and the Sith understand the Force. Yes, but I thought you guys loved Legends, and all the times when I was saying, oh yeah, the EU's not canon, it was never part of George Lucas's intentions, you know, deal with it. And people were getting mad at me and calling me all kinds of names. My point is, all this stuff from the EU, you had these different groups, right? And one of the things that Leslie, the showrunner, said, a year ago or 2 years back, I don't remember, but she said that Wuxia would influence this story or inspired her, right? And I know you guys probably don't know about Wuxia. Wuxia is like Chinese fantasy. I've always said that Star Wars is is wuxia made for the West, right? You got all the flying swordsmen. You go watch some of these wuxia series that are out now, and all the kung fu masters basically have 4 Jedi powers, except there's no lightsabers, right? They've got tai chi swords and whatever. They fly through the air. They got telekinesis and everything else. They have Jedi powers, right? And actually they have even more abilities, some of them, right? The usually the big bad guy is some super demon or something, right? So, but my point is, you had all these different groups. You have like the Ermei Mountains, the Wudong, the Shaolin Sheer, whatever, Shaolin Mountain, right? I think there's like 7 mountains in the little fantasy universe where wuxia, and everything happens in the Central Plains, right? The Central Plains is the galaxy. And so in Star Wars, it's like it's always been, for most people, the Jedi and the Sith. And I've always been critical of that. Like, yo, man, we need to expand the Force. We need to expand ways of knowing the Force. And this was a thing in the EU. And now it's happening. And people are like, oh, this breaks canon. No, it doesn't. First off, the Witch's understanding of the Force does not clash with established Star Wars lore. It expands it, right? The Witches do this. They talked about the thread, right? The thread is really Indra's web from Hinduism and Buddhism. The Jedi are, some people consider them to be Zen monks, right? Space age Zen monks, right? Some people say, well, they lean more towards Taoism. Some they lean more towards Buddhism, but Zen is really a fusion of Taoism and Buddhism. So, and Indra's web is part of Hinduism. It's part of Buddhism. And I keep using this term, but when Mother Anasay is talking about the threads, I'm like, she's exactly describing Indra's web, right? Indra's web. What the spider or Indra's net? I've heard other, multiple different names for this, but what do you think about when you think of a spider web, right? There are threads, right? Each thread, everything is connected, right? In Buddhism, the teaching is it's the interconnectedness of being, right? It's used to illustrate that idea that when you pull on one thread, it shakes the rest of the net, the rest of the web, which is exactly what when Osha tells her mother that she wants to leave and go with the Jedi, what does she say? She says, don't leave it up to the Force, to deter the will of the Force, right? Pull that thread. And Qui-Gon talks about the same ideas. I'm not just going to leave it up to the Force. I'm going to take action, right? Anakin, and there's a reason why the Jedi are kind of like against this teaching, because then, Mother Talzin says, the power of one becomes the power of many, right? Is that when you step into this bigger world, you realize, oh, I'm one point on this thread, and when I pull on it, I affect everything else, as opposed to, I'm this one point on the thread, and I'm just going to do what I want, regardless of how it affects other people. And she's putting that on the Jedi, but really the Jedi are like, may the force of others be with you, which is what what the Guardians of the Will say. But that was a Jedi saying, now it's just may the force be with you. And it's like, well, what about the other people? I guess maybe it was implied. I don't know what caused the change from the force of others to drop in that part, right? But the Jedi are actually teaching the same thing. But like I said earlier, you got to understand that there's conflict between these groups, right? So I'm spending too long on these points, and there's like 10 of them, right? So then he says plot inconsistencies. Star Wars theory points out illogical plots like the Jedi not knowing about the Coven of Witches on a whole planet, or Osha lying during the Jedi test and then immediately calling him out. Well, I mean, first Osha lied. She called out the Jedi because the Jedi knew that she was lying. They knew her sister was lying. Like, Saul has seen these girls use the Force, so then they go in to test them, and it's like, oh, she's calling out the wrong answers. And I mean, they let May go, right? She's got the tattoo. She's already, I don't want to say been indoctrinated, but There was a difference, and that's another thing that Star Wars theory seemed to have completely missed. That he talks about later, right? Is like, oh, these girls are getting along just fine, and then all of a sudden May wants to kill her sister. It's like, no, bro. They were building up to that the whole episode, right? Even, before then, we were led to believe that May set the fire and ruined Osha's life, and now we're seeing what actually happened on Brindok, and it's like, yo, man, this tension between the girls, they were literally fighting when Mother Anastaea's like first teaching, giving them a lesson on the thread. They were, stop it, Osha. Like, I'm sitting here like, the first time I watched the episode, I couldn't even pay attention to what Anastasia was saying, because I'm like, yo, man, why are they fighting? Like, are they getting ready to have start force pushing each other and pulling their braids or whatever with the force? Like, like, I don't know how he missed that. Attention to details, bro. But anyway, plot inconsistencies, right? So the Jedi, maybe Indara was lying, right? That, you know what? Like, I feel like you guys should just go watch. I did one video. I pointed out the themes and questions from the first 3 episodes. And I talked about, like, everybody's lying. The Jedi were lying. The witches are lying. Osha lied. May lied. Everybody's lying. That's a theme, right? So it's not it's not inconsistency if it's a theme that everybody's lying. Man, I'm trying not to cuss, but Star Wars theory doesn't understand Star Wars, and he obviously doesn't understand how to like watch a show and critique it and pay attention to the details.
There are a lot of things that I don't understand.
Right. So then he says unnecessary dialogue. If we don't have dialogue, how do we know what's happening? Right. But he says some dialogue is unnecessary or contradictory, like the witches claiming the galaxy discriminates against them, except for droids. Well, I mean, bro, you gotta, your Star Wars theory, you know everything about Star Wars. So how did you not know that the Jedi at one point were crusaders? That's literally why the Sith wanted their revenge, because of, man, see, this is why I'm rusty from taking 4 years off from talking Star Wars consistently on YouTube, right? But go look at those Darth Maul comic books. And I mean, even what was the season when Kanan gets blinded and we thought Ahsoka, the last time we see Ahsoka and Rebels until the epilogue at the end where they're at that Sith temple. Like, what happened there was the Jedi Crusaders came there, something bad happened, and everybody pretty much died, right? That's what killed off when there were many Sith. And, I don't know, you have to go check out Star Wars theory. Of course, if you're a Star Wars, it's not Star Wars theory, Alex and Molly, right? I got a picture with Alex, and I think we're wearing these shirts, right? Go watch Alex and Molly and get up on canon, right? But whatever happened there, that's when the Sith were like, yo, man, we got to get revenge on the Jedi for this particular event. Sidious takes Maul there when he's a little kid. Maul is completely traumatized by the bodies and the death and everything, right? So the Jedi were not always good. They didn't always do good things, right? So because of that, the Jedi became, this is the right way. This is the only way to practice the Force. The Force is only for Jedi, is and now this is me giving my own interpretation of what I think happened, right? I don't know, right? But the Force is only for Jedi, right? It's too dangerous for the layperson. I don't know if that's true, but it does line up with history, right? What's the number one banned book in the world? The Bible, right? The Catholic Church said the Bible is too dangerous in the hands of lay people, right? Substitute the Bible for the Force. The Force is too dangerous for lay people. We have only our people can control this, right? Only our people need knowledge of this, right? You start looking at real world religions and Star Wars. And if you don't understand something, just say, has something like this happened in history? Because I remember a long time ago, Pablo Hidalgo was answering questions on Twitter and people were like, what do you need to know if you want to work for Lucasfilm and make Star Wars, he was like, well, just knowing Star Wars is not enough. You need to know world history and literature and, you know, or movie history, be a movie buff, stuff like that. You need to know more than just Star Wars. Just saying, oh, I know everything about Star Wars. Okay, that's great. Now, how do you understand the themes? How do you relate this? How do you understand, you know, where this is coming from, right? Understanding the source material is like a cheat code to Star Wars, right? So this unnecessary that throw that out, because, you know, the witches claiming the galaxy discriminates against them. Well, they wouldn't be there on Brindok if they hadn't been discriminated against, right? And then look what happens. Look at the outcome. There was a big fire and some explosion. We don't know how that happened, right? Why were the Jedi there investigating in the first place, right? Because obviously, you know, there's been some conflict there that led them to, you know, trying to flee from Republic space, right? And then, you know, Mother Coral is like, well, you know, what are you gonna do when people find out how you put these babies in me, right? So there, I really feel like, man, like, either this dude wasn't paying attention or he's complaining just to complain. I don't know. You guys tell me, right? So then he says unconvincing character motivations. Well, if you weren't paying attention to the dialogue and you didn't understand what's happening, then obviously the character motivations aren't going to make sense for you. Why would the Jedi steal children for training, especially so this comes up again, right? So I've already addressed that, right? This is what the witches are thinking. That's what they're saying. What the Jedi are, you know, there's always two sides of a story. Well, really three. There's their side, the witches' side, the Jedi side, and the truth. We've only seen the point of view of, I feel like, from Osha, right? Because when May goes off on the walk with Mother Coral, this is something I brought up in my video, which if you're new here, you might want to go watch that video, right? Because I brought up a lot of interesting points or things to think about, questions to hold as this, you know, as we explore this series and the stories, right? Is that there's stuff we didn't see this. Why did they not show us this? Right. This is what if you're new here and you've never seen me talk about Star Wars, even though I've been on and off for 8 years at this point, right? Is that when you see something, question, why are they showing me this? Why aren't they showing me this other thing? When they're saying this, why are they saying this? What are they not saying? Right. Instead of just jumping to some, they want us to see all these lesbian witches, right? Which is funny because, like I said, whenever you see something, ask, have we seen this before in the real world, right? And I mentioned this at the end of my last video. I told my folks, if you really are fascinated about these witches, look up the Beguines, right? The Beguines was a monastic community of Christian nuns. They were Christian mystics, which is a big no-no in medieval times when, you know, the Pope controlled everything, you know, related to Christianity, right? And these women were having ecstatic experiences, right? And they were quite graphic about it, right? So what did everybody say? Oh, I'm hearing moaning and all this and chanting and, you know, like it sounds like they're having sex there. It's all these women, those Beguines, right? So, you know, they said they were all lesbians. And you're like, why are you telling me this? Who cares? Beguines, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I don't know if I can say this because YouTube will, from the name Beguine, if you speak French, if you know French, the slang term for a really bad way to call a woman a lesbian comes from that name, Beguines, right? So, I mean, first off, we don't know if these are lesbian witches. We only saw Mother Coral and Mother Anastasia. So it could just be that those two are the only, you know, lesbians in the entire community, but, oh, they're all lesbians. They're lesbian witches. Well, you know, yeah, those two, but we don't know about the rest. And I mean, we assume Mother Anastasia is a human and Mother Coral's a Zabrak, right? So these are different species. So can you even say that they're lesbians when they're like, they're like different species, It's not human woman and human woman. It's a Zabrak. We don't, I don't know where she's got horns on her head. I don't know if she got horns anywhere else. So I'm just saying, like, since I've been in Thailand, and there's a very different attitude towards, the whole LGBT spectrum over here. Lady boys are accepted as the third gender. I'm noticing that, when people in the West, especially America, talk about this stuff, they're, mostly they're concerned with sex. So we don't know how they're hooking up, and y'all shouldn't jump to those conclusions. Like I said, pay attention to details. I feel like a lot of these points, the rest, because now my video is longer than Star Wars Theories video. I feel like I'm like getting redundant with what I'm saying, but this is off the dome. So you guys like for me to just flow off the dome. Right. So, what's the next one? Convenient plot development. Star Wars Theory finds it unrealistic that the witches were able to create Force-sensitive children, something even the Sith and the Jedi couldn't do. Attention to details. Everybody's assuming that there was some immaculate conception. All we know is that Mother Coral carried the girls and birthed them. Mother Anastasia created them. But we don't know how they were created. All she said was, what's going to happen when they find out how you created them? There's some theories that they were clones. Let's say everyone is right. Well, not everyone, because a lot of people, this whole clone idea of them being clones, or what's the other theory? That OSHA is real. You got this Fight Club thing that OSHA's not Tyler, that May is Tyler, right? From Fight Club, that May is not real. She's a force projection, and OSHA's the only one that's real, right? I don't know. So everybody doesn't think that they're an immaculate conception or conceived by the Force, which they aren't. Anakin was conceived by the Force, right? Conceived by the midichlorians to balance, through the chosen one, there will be balance in the Force, right? That's something people miss, through the chosen one, right? So they ruined the prophecy, and I'm like, oh, like Yoda said, maybe a prophecy misread, right? There's no prophecy that I know of regarding Osha and May being born and created by Mother Anastasia manipulating the midichlorians. For all we know, because this breaks canon. No, it's Plagueis and Tenebris. And well, first off, the only thing we know is that Plagueis was the master of Sidious, and his master was Tenebris, and that Plagueis was, experimenting. He was doing all these experiments on the midichlorians. But all that stuff in the Plagueis novels, not canon, right? There's very limited information on what actually is canon regarding Plagueis, and you can read about it on Wikipedia, or read the books that stuff is in. They came out years ago, and I don't think there's been any much new to come out since. I mean, I'm talking like back before The Last Jedi was even out. Most of those books were out. I don't know if there's been anything new. I haven't been reading that stuff since I moved here and had a kid, because I don't have time, right? But for all we know, let's say Mother Anastasia did create the girls, through the Force, through her mastery of the thread. And I said this, I was like, no, I didn't talk about this in the video. I was talking about if the twins are a dyad. I said the Sith would want to know how to recreate that. And the same thing, the same regard. If Mother Anastasia created them through the Force, the Sith would want to know how she did it, right? So if she did it, and then Plagueis later on finds out, oh, these witches that were fleeing the Jedi, they figured out how to do this. Let me retrace the steps so I can try to figure out how to do this. And all his experiments and the rising of the Sith becoming more powerful is, through various machinations, where Plagueis wanted to be the Shadow Emperor with Palpatine as the face, right? That was his plan, and he was more obsessed with becoming immortal, and Sidious killed him. Did I say? I said Palpatine. I don't know. Y'all, it's early and it's almost 6 a.m. now. I've been up since 4 a.m. trying to set up to do this, film this. So I'm I really hope my daughter sleeps late so I can go back to bed when I finish this. But anyway, my point is, like, I don't know if people knew that was what Plagueis wanted to do. And Palpatine was like, well, I'm going to learn everything that you know, and then I'm going to kill you and, do it myself. What do I need you for? Right. But my point is, like I said, if Mother Anastasia really did do it, then it doesn't break canon. It just means, oh, well, then Plagueis was trying to figure out how to recreate what she did. It's really that, or where she learned it from, right? She learned how to do it from somewhere, so I'm going to go learn it from wherever she did, right? Same way YouTube works. If you see somebody make a successful video, you go and watch it and try to reverse engineer what they did. I mean, it's literally what Mr. Beast says, that he did. And, I know a little bit more about Mr. Beast than the average person, but that's G14 classified. If you know, you know. Anyway, so we're almost through this. We got like 3 more, right? So selective use of force powers. Star Wars Theory criticizes Saul, the Jedi, for not using the force to save both Osha and May when he clearly could have. Hey man, that's a plot point. The whole point was Osha. I mean, first off, Saul had a connection to Osha, not really May. So, that's an unfolding thing. What is the story with Saul? Some people think he might actually be the Sith Lord, right? You're criticizing something that will turn out to be a major plot point in this story. So, I mean, the whole point was he saved Osha. He let May fall. Now, why could he have used the force? I don't know. That's not the story, man. Don't try to rewrite the story. Just, this is what happened. This is what we know what happened, was that Osha thought her sister died. She goes with Saul. How did that happen? Or is Saul manipulating her? Is Indara? Was the intentions to split them up? We don't know, right? You can't stop This is the thing that gets me, is these people come and they criticize stuff, and it's like, we don't know why this happened, right? You got to let the story unfold. This is what we know happened, though, right? Is that they got separated. Osha became Saul's Padawan, right? Maybe he didn't want to save May, right? It's like, man, she got the funny yin yang Jedi mosaic kind of looking tattoo on her head. Maybe she was too indoctrinated into the coven, right? She didn't want to leave in the first place. She was like, everything I need is here, right? And that's actually the next plot point. Unresolved plot points. Just Star Wars Theory questions how May survived the destruction of the coven. Oh, no, not yet. I think I skipped that. Oh, that was unnecessary violence. Sorry, I skipped that one completely. Right, but he questioned why the Jedi would burn down the entire coven and kill everyone. I skipped one of these. I think it was the plot developments, or I don't know. But at some point he was like, why all of a sudden does May want to kill Osha when, I addressed it already in this talk, as I said, yo, man, they were building on that the entire episode. He wasn't paying attention. Just like, it was like, oh, they start with this shot of this magic tree. Why would they do that? And it's like,
we start this episode with the Tree of Magic, something like from Avatar.
You big dummy.
Bro, like in the previous episode, May pulls out the leaves and gives them the chimera and was like, I need you to make this poison. And she gives the poison to Torben. He drinks it and dies, right? Now, I admit, I just started watching this series, so I had the opportunity to sit and binge all 3 episodes at one time. And then sit down and I'm taking notes and go through everything and make a video. So for me, I watched a almost 3-hour movie or something, while my daughter took a 3-hour nap, which was awesome. Awesome because I got to sit down and watch everything and not break it up. I love my boo. But sometimes daddy needs a break to work. So everything was fresh in my mind. I saw how these episodes all connected, right? But it's like the poison from the Bunta tree was, that was what she used to kill Torben, right? And then the next episode, oh, here's the shot of the Bunta tree that we've been hearing about, right? It's beautiful but deadly, right? And I'm like, how does he not see how these things connect? Maybe that's why people don't understand the thread, because the thread is how everything is connected. It's like all of these themes, everything that they're showing to us is connected. And it's like, well, how are they connected? We don't know yet. You have to wait and see. Wait, because right now you're looking at a thread, right? But we need the bigger picture to see the web. And that's not me. Oh, you're just trying to cover for. No, that's how everything works. Every story, you start with a little point and then it gets bigger and expands until, oh, now I see the full plot. Now I understand the full hero's journey. And there we come back to Joseph Campbell. And if you don't understand Star Wars, then, what does Campbell say about this part progression, right? I haven't even gotten a chance to talk about the hero's journey in this series, because I want to wait. I want to wait until we have a bigger picture to start filling in some of those pieces, to start to connect the dots, right? So, the unresolved plot points, you're not going to get everything in one episode. This is not Buffy, right? Where every week they kill a monster and there's a little self-contained story, and then they have the bigger season story. This is not that, dog. This is one big story, and you're just getting little snippets and pieces. And then when all of season 1 is out, then you can start to, oh, this is how this piece of the puzzle fits with this piece of the puzzle fits with this piece of the puzzle, right? So how did May survive the destruction, and who might be responsible? We don't know yet. We don't know what happened. May set a little fire, because of Osha. What did Coral say to May? Where is Coral? Because I think personally that she may have survived the fire. I've seen shots of things I've seen an image from a scene that we didn't see in the last episode, where all the witches' eyes were black, and then I saw a shot of Kelnaka attacking Torben. So maybe the witches possessed one of the Jedi or two of the Jedi and made them fight, and their fight caused that explosion that killed everybody, right? When Torben, and people criticize, why would Torben drink this poison, right? Well, first off, he did something, he felt so guilty about it that he took a barash vow, a Jedi form of penance, right? So he's holding some guilt about something. And then how did his face get scarred up? His eyes, it looked like he took a lightsaber slash or something. That's, I don't know if it was a lightsaber. So let me strike that from the record. Something happened, right? And I've seen a shot of he as a Padawan fighting with Kelnaka. So there's more to this story that we haven't even seen. We don't know how that explosion happened. May's little fire outside the door may have been, it may have been the match that lit the dynamite. Where did the TNT come from? Where did the dynamite come from? Where did the C4 come from, right? She had the catalyst, but you have to, just because you have a catalyst, you have to have all the conditions right for a reaction to happen. And the Jedi, I believe, were responsible for that. Whatever happened, May believes the Jedi were responsible for it, not her, not what she did, right? The Jedi come in there in the first place, splitting her and Oshi up. And that's the thing. May was like, I'm happy here. I want to be a witch. Osha, I don't want to be a witch. I want to see the galaxy. I want my own life. I don't want to share everything with May, right? So all this, I don't know, the whole point is just pay attention. Just pay attention to this stuff. So anyway, Star Wars Theory's overall impression, he finds the episode poorly written and a perversion of Star Wars lore, but Star Wars Theory doesn't understand Star Wars nor the lore.
There are a lot of things that I
I don't understand.
Nor especially not the source material that the lore is based on, right? And, and seeing the episode poorly written, of course it's poorly written when you don't pay attention to what's happening. You don't understand the plot details. You don't understand how these things are connected, and they're building on the previous episodes, leading to a bigger story.
There are a lot of things that I don't understand.
It's almost like you need everything. Bleh, here's everything. Enjoy it. And, and then at the end of the day, it's, these guys, sometimes they complain just to complain because, I don't know, they feel like, oh, well, if I come out and say Disney sucks and this is, liberal garbage and culture war and everything else, I'll get, 500, 500,000 views in a day. And, I know y'all are looking at this channel. You don't know that I have other channels, but hey, man, I like getting them 5-figure checks every month. Like, yo, man, I live in another country now, and I want to build a house. I got a kid now. I want her to have a place to play. Yeah, I could come on here and dump on Star Wars and, and knowing what I know now from, working with the people that I work with, be a YouTube millionaire. That would be nice, but that's not authentic. That's not me. And on my other channel, I want to host events. I don't want to host events with people that I wouldn't want to be around, because I don't feel that way. So I'm going to be me and be authentic, and I'm going to teach you guys about Star Wars and talk about, the spiritual aspects of Star Wars. After Rain Roberts, the VP at Lucasfilm and the co-producer of this episode, she said, Prince, you've got a strong handle on the spiritual aspects of Star Wars and the Force. And that's what I bring to the community. I don't know everything about the EU. I haven't even read all the High Republic books. I read the first one. I really liked it. And then life, threw me some curveballs and, and a kid and a wife. And I just haven't had time. So, I don't know everything that's happened with Star Wars, but I know how to look at something and say, oh, what's this leading up to? What's this? Why is this the way this is? Oh, yeah, this is like this thing that I've studied in, religion classes and in seminary, or, doing my own, personal studies in Buddhism and Taoism and, Islam. And, oh, this guy's like a Sufi, and this is the mystical part of this real religion. And like, I geek out. That's my jam. That's where I geek out. Religion and martial arts. And I just take those experiences and bring them to Star Wars, right? And then the whole military thing, attention to detail, shipmate. So, really that's it, right? So this is me coming off the dome. Hey, man, I'm sorry, Star Wars Theory, but I don't have nothing personal against you. I don't want to see you canceled. Hey, man, you're the biggest Star Wars creator on the platform. I just wish you would, actually like think before you speak, but I know there's a lot of stuff you don't understand. It is what it is. I'll be here to teach you about Star Wars. And hey, man, if you learn something from me, then, your 3.3 million subscribers will learn something from you because of me. There
are a lot of things that I don't understand.
So that's really all I got to say about that one. I don't know. I think I'm just going to upload this video. Like I don't have time to edit it. It's too long. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hey, y'all keep on breathing, and may the force of others be with you always.